Without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Siân Jones, my co-collaborator and the founder that brought us all together for building interVASP and IVMS 101. And we're going to have now a very quick-fire panel discussion. So we have Shyft, Sygna, Netki, TRISA, OpenVASP, and Notabene, who will be joining Siân. So I shall hand over and allow Siân to take the floor. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Malcolm, and welcome to our panel session, The Known World, Answering the Remaining Questions. We heard earlier Malcolm define one of what are possibly several discovery challenges for VASPs relating to the travel rule, and his proposed global list of VASPs as a possible solution to that problem. We've also heard from Jeff and Andrew on their travel rule solutions. With me now are 6 distinguished panelists, all working on projects designed to make life easier for VASPs in complying with their new travel rule obligations. So let me welcome David Riegelnig from Bitcoin Suisse, Justin Newton from Netki, Joe Weinberg from Shyft, Elsa Madrolle from Coolbit, I have to learn to say that properly, Dave Jevans from CipherTrace, and Pelle Braendgaard from Notabene. So let's hear from each of you about the exciting travel rule projects you're working on. David from Switzerland, would you like to kick us off?
Thanks very much. Happy to do that. Thank you, Siân. I think let's quickly, I think we just have 1 minute or 2 to do that. Be very quick about OpenVASP for those who are not familiar with it. It's basically an open protocol, very similar to what we have heard also today. Decentralized, privacy very much in the focus. It is a protocol which is driven by a couple of VASPs and other organizations across the globe. We have a non-profit association which really maintains the protocol and fosters the ecosystem, also funds the initial open source implementations. It's very important you can use this protocol without being a member or without having to register. It's just, I think, for the community that these companies, and it's a growing number, have come together to really build something for us. I think what's important here is that indeed also we have open source implementation as well as commercial offerings from some of our members. And we, of course, also are actively planning with partnering with other solutions, all distinguished colleagues on the panel today. And of course, yes, IVMS 101 is also part of our offering. We are currently in testing the network and will be out in Q3 with a full package solving the problem. Thanks.
Thanks very much, David. Very, very swift. You have the luxury of 2 minutes with these opening points. So let's turn next to Justin. Would you like to tell us about your exciting VASP travel rule solution?
For sure, Siân. Thanks for inviting me today. I'm really happy to be here. So, you know, as many you're aware, and I know you are as well, we started building the Transact ID solution for travel rule all the way back in 2015 and 2016. I've had this live in production since mid-2016. Our solution is based around the BIP 75 standard, plus some recent extensions that we've made to the standard. This is, as far as I'm aware, actually the only solution that's gone through an external third-party standards creation process, you know, rather than one that was sort of created in-house. We clearly support the IVMS 101 standard. We were very heavily involved in participation and creation of the standard. And honestly, we're super happy to have this standard here, both because it makes it easier for our customers to build standardized business logic that they know is going to work regardless of the travel rule solution that they're working with. But as, or more importantly, it means that now, as we're entering this phase of building out interoperability with the other travel rule solutions out there, this standard that includes normalized ways to do messaging, what should be in the fields, what they look like, make building those bridges and that interoperability much easier for us. This solution is the most inclusive solution in the market. It's the only solution that supports all players in the ecosystem, including VASPs, non-custodial wallets, dApps, etc. And from this perspective, it's actually the only travel rule solution that supports global travel rule requirements in all jurisdictions. VASP to VASP doesn't cover the global footprint today. and certainly doesn't cover the sanctions screening that we expect to be coming next. Identifying VASPs is done natively as part of the protocol, inside of the protocol itself, without the requirement of a centralized or published list to minimize data leakage. And we do natively include unhosted wallets in our solution, as I talked about earlier, which is one of the major new FATF targets. We're the only provider I'm aware of to do so. And finally, as we're going to cover in just a moment, I know when the next question comes around, by going with Netki's Transact ID, you're going to have universal or near universal coverage across all travel rule solutions, no matter what the other end is selected.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much indeed, Justin. Joe, from you in Canada at the moment, go ahead.
I am. Thank you for having me, and thanks for everyone for being here. My name is Joseph Weinberg. I'm the co-founder of Shyft Network. Shyft Network is a smart contract mediated blockchain-based solution. We've really taken a fully decentralized approach to the problem itself, and we have kind of a few different reasons for doing that. PII isn't stored on a blockchain. We basically mediate, and we really start with governance at the VASP layer by using a blockchain. Blockchains are very good at discovery and coordination. That's basically what they do. And so we've really leveraged the fact that you can use a public protocol, or at least a partially public protocol, as a way to allow visibility and discovery on the VASP side. As we pertain to kind of a discovery layer, VASPs are able to onboard information into this. We have a governance kind of onboarding committee that leverages this as a way to ensure that you can do initial onboarding. We'll be able to add other different protocol solutions as well into that, so you can kind of solve this counterparty discovery and data protocol challenge that we're talking about today. And then we really actually have applied the use of what we call attestations as a way to write formal requests to the network, really as a way of kind of allowing other VASPs to say, I have a transaction, who is the other VASP on the other side? And so using this kind of VASP discovery and what we call transaction discovery, we're able to actually solve both problems. Similar to Netki, this is being used today with VASPs, but very much focused on DeFi and decentralized applications as well as non-custodial wallets. And then runs a data sharing infrastructure at the end in order to complete the actual end-to-end solution. So good to be here.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much indeed. Elsa, tell us about your product.
Yeah, great. Hi, I'm Elsa Madrolle. I am General Manager of Coolbits. Coolbits is the creator of Sygna Bridge. We've taken yet a different approach to many of our peers. So we were of the opinion that the transfer of personal data probably belonged off the blockchain, and that we could build a solution that was secure and easy to implement with the advantages of a Swift-like network. The solution was built with input from a number of VASPs who expressed that they would be interested in creating that kind of trusted, secure environment, and who also saw that there was no need specifically to have personal data reside on blockchain. Ultimately, we will be sharing the governance of that network between the founding VASP members. So we're working very closely to build this out in collaboration with the future users and co-owners of the network. So in summary, to use Sygna Bridge, a VASP has to apply to join the network. We perform due diligence on them. They then get assigned a specific code. That code, along with public and private keys, gives them access to privacy secure tunnels for the transmission of the required encrypted personal data. We, Sygna, never actually have access to that personal data. We just create the secure environment for the exchange to take place. As I said, it happens outside the blockchain, so it's completely separate to the transaction. That gives the receiving VASP a chance to screen and accept or reject the message, and potentially stop a transaction from actually even taking place if it does get flagged. We are live today. We're actually in cross-border production in 3 countries, with a bunch more in the pipeline as we're working through the jurisdictional requirements. Thanks, John.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. And we're motoring through this session, I'm pleased to say, on time. Dave, I'm guessing you're on the West Coast. A very good morning to you. You must be at the first coffee stage. Perhaps you'd like to tell us about what CipherTrace are up to.
Thanks, Sean. Absolutely happy to do so. CipherTrace, as some of you know, is one of the leading blockchain analytics companies in the world. But what we did is we started an information sharing alliance for travel rule back in February of last year. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. So that's the Travel Rule Information Sharing Alliance. We now have 50 VASPs who have joined and are participating. The whole idea of this is to create an open architecture that is open source, that can be used for free, but is also global. So it's decentralized, global, and then we've done a lot of work with our colleagues that are on this meeting today to build interoperability with the system. We announced our first white paper, probably September or August of last year. The software has been available in open source since August of last year. We're now on version 8 of the white paper and of the software. Version 8 adds support for OpenVASP, which David's going to talk about. We fully supported the IVMS 101 standard, so wonderful work there. And that, I think we were the first open source project to incorporate IVMS 101, so that's available for free download on the GitHub. And then we have been really doing a lot of work on the VASP verification and discovery problem that Malcolm has talked about. So we worked with GDF pretty much weekly for the last 3 or 4 months on questionnaire for VASPs. And we now are pleased to announce that we have a live VASP directory up and running. There are 879 VASPs in that directory. Not all of them have filled out their questionnaires, but they're in there, they're listed, their data is available. Happy to talk about it more when there's questions. Thank you.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thanks so much, Dave. And last but not least, Pelle and Notabene, please tell us what you folks are up to.
Hi, yeah, I'm from Notabene. We are a hosted travel rule compliance platform, which means you don't have to spin up your own servers or nodes. We make it very easy to comply with all the different protocols, or as many different protocols as possible. So we're protocol agnostic ourselves, and are currently supporting OpenVASP, IVMS 101. We'll add support for TRISA, Shyft, TRP, and likely also BIP 75. Justin, I'm going to reach out to you. So our team, we all come from the decentralized identity world, where we've been working on this idea of building trust in a non-centralized manner for a long time. So our VASP discovery or way of looking at that is based specifically on that. We do not believe it's a good idea to have a centralized protocol for a centralized list of VASPs, but what we do is we allow VASP to go in and create a VASP code that works with the protocol that they need, and we can help verify information about them. This is then built together as part of the travel rule solution into a dashboard where you as a compliance officer, you can go in and take a risk-based approach on doing due diligence of counterparty VASPs, handle incoming travel rule requests, combine that information together with information from blockchain analytics. So we're really trying to make the first really easy to use way of getting compliant with the travel rule as soon as possible and with as wide a reach as possible.
Super. Thanks so much, Pelle. Thanks everyone for explaining what you're doing. It's quite clear that there's a huge amount of work that has and is being done to meet some of the extraordinary travel rule challenges that face VASPs. Let me ask each of you how you would solve for the VASP discovery problem that Malcolm described earlier on today. David?
I think what I clearly can only emphasize, I think we have heard it also already from the panelists. I think the level of actual working together is quite tremendous, I must say. And I think we also need to be aware that these individual solutions, they're competing with each other, but I think it's mostly open source, mostly for us. I think these are different approaches. And I think there is a reason why we have also different approaches here. I think not all of those solutions tackle the same audience. We have a wide area of VASPs. So I think we rather see this really as a strength of the industry, that we tackle those topics from various levels. But clearly, I think with interoperability, there are very, very good approaches around. Let me make an example. The TRISA directory we plan in OpenVASP that can be used for the OpenVASP network. We've seen others, Notabene's approach. We have seen ideas from Shyft and Netki where we're talking together. So I think what we will see is actually that implementations will solve this very easily. So bottom line, from my point of view, such a global list is not required. It would rather stifle the innovation and would produce a gatekeeper. I think we should avoid that.
Justin, no gatekeeper, says David. What are your thoughts on how to solve the VASP discovery problem?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me agree with David. I think the idea of a global list is really counter to the way that the cryptocurrency ecosystem has been built and has evolved in really the direction that we want to take. What makes cryptocurrency special is that it's a network for open and permissionless innovation. And as soon as you have somebody that controls who gets in and who doesn't, that kind of breaks that. But going back to the discovery problem as a whole, this is where I want to just tease the announcement of what I would call a Transact ID connector. We're still working on the name, but as our solution had already handled a lot of the concerns that FATF had raised earlier about peer-to-peer operation on hosted wallets and that list of 4 other things, we've moved on to full end-to-end interoperability between protocols. And so, with that service, customers of our Transact ID will be able to interact with all the other major protocols. And we've begun building those bridges between us and several of those protocols already. Included in that, our protocol actually includes discovery directly in the protocol. And so just by utilizing BIP75, the VASP discovery happens inside of it. Similarly, with the bridges that we're building, we'll bridge that capability to actually utilize the native discovery capabilities inside of those other networks. And so, again, by, going with Transact ID and Netki service, you'll be able to do discovery across all of the networks, or at least all of the networks that choose to interoperate with us, as well as do transactions across all those networks.
So we're hearing a common theme here. Is this one that you, Joe, would support?
Yes. I mean, I've been in Bitcoin since 2010, and I started to work on this solution really out of that realization is that, decentralization is the reason why we're here, and it provides the benefits that give us all, jobs today in many respects. And it's the reason why we looked at a blockchain-based solution for discovery is that we believe that we can solve, centralized problems with decentralized solutions. And if we can do that, it enables so many more opportunities for the entire ecosystem and industry. Shyft uses, as I just mentioned, the discovery protocol to onboard VASPs. They discover transactions trustlessly. And what we're going to actually start doing is opening up that discovery layer and that attestation engine to all other protocols, so it would allow us to leverage that as a way to discover everyone. So
thank you. Elsa, are you going to run into the same camp here?
Well, from our perspective, VASP discovery is not really an issue inherent to how Sygna functions. So we view it more from the interoperability point of view with other solutions. So Sygna operates across a network of already vetted, trusted VASPs that are assigned a VASP code for identification. So really the onus is on Sygna to perform the due diligence on which VASPs it allows into the network. So we're less concerned about VASP discovery because we know that the VASPs on our network are already discovered, so to speak. But we are more concerned about the due diligence that we have to undertake on these individual VASPs. So we'll be using a due diligence process, that looks at the robustness of their systems as it pertains to compliance, risk management, security, whether they're regulated or not, what country's in, what they've adopted, certain ISO standards, et cetera. As you know, Sean, there are due diligence documents currently being worked on by the industry. We'll integrate those. Obviously, that only works for Sygna members. For the time being, we're focusing on building our network and vetting our discovered VASPs. But we have also started working on interoperability. We're working with some of the TSPs that we see on the panel. We have fully integrated IBMS 101 data standard, and we will have a POC in September to address VASP discovery outside of Sygna as part of our interoperability roadmap. So just to conclude, I guess the creation of a global list of VASPs from our perspective would be another very useful element in that work that we'd be participating in, and we'd be happy to integrate, but more on that in September.
Thank you, Elsa. Dave, you've started, you were the sort of the instigator of TRISA. It had the word architecture at the end, which I think it won't escape folks that that's now an alliance. What are your thoughts about the discovery problem?
So there's two different things. The way we looked at there's discovery and vetting. So we look at it as effectively what we did was we took an approach using standards that exist today, in particular the enhanced validation standard, which is used by pretty much every bank to get a digital certificate issued for the bank. There's a wide set of protocols and business processes there. So we figured, why invent something that isn't, you know, why invent something new when there's a whole business logic, a whole regime that is accepted by most major internet companies and most banks to verify identity of counterparties, to identify risk of counterparties, ownership of domains, to prevent many of the problems that Malcolm has specified and also our colleagues at JFSA have talked about. So that's our view there, which is use industry standards and industry standard methodology. There is a second problem that has been alluded to, and Jeffrey spoke about this from Coinbase, which is, how do you know which Bitcoin address or Ethereum address or XRP address belongs to which VASP? And this is a big problem. We've been writing about it in the TRISA white papers for 9 months now. This is a challenge. And you know, we've put together some programs that and algorithms that don't require a central bulletin board, if you will, that help protect user privacy. So we believe this is the next challenge. Once you go beyond verifying VASPs, who they are, and if you want to do business with them, the next thing is, how do you figure out across protocols and across private company infrastructures, et cetera, who controls which address?
This is, of course, one of several discovery problems, possibly, and I have a feeling we could have a whole day discussion on teasing out those different discovery problems.
Jurisdictional, you know, registration will be another big discovery problem. Yeah, indeed,
indeed. Pelle, what about your thoughts on how to solve the VASP discovery problem that Malcolm talked about before?
Yeah, so a lot of the protocols have built-in discovery mechanisms in it, such as OpenVASP has a VAN code and a VASP code. And I think the problem of figuring out which VASP is behind an address is only going to be a temporary problem. It's going to be a temporary problem until we change some of the flows that we've been using and building up in the industry over the last few years. And I realize for some businesses that's going to be somewhat complicated, particularly for very, very large VASP. But we will have to change the way that we both have customer front ends and we manage our back ends to be able to correctly implement the travel rule. And in that case, using VASP codes, VANs, pay IDs, etc., actually will be a lot simpler and will actually start bringing benefits to the consumers, I believe, as well, such as data privacy. But I don't think using address discovery is a scalable solution. I don't think it's a long-term solution. It's just a short-term solution that we can use our blockchain analytics tools to help deal with in the short term. But it's any solution that requires this, I think it's problematic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pelle. Well, clearly folks have been thinking about this problem for some time. They've been thinking about perhaps more than just this one discovery problem. It will be very interesting to see how this develops over the next months and year, particularly leading up to the second 12-month review in about 11 months from now. All that remains is for me to thank our esteemed panelists, David, Justin, Joe, Elsa, Dave, and Pelle. Thank you all very much for sharing your insights today. Back to you, Malcolm.